Time now for Morning Rounds, our look at the medical news of the week. First up, could something as simple as a regular dose of aspirin affect your risk for certain kinds of cancer? New research on long-term aspirin use was presented at the United European Gastroenterology Conference this week.
The study looked at over 600,000 people from Hong Kong. There were two groups. One used aspirin, one did not. The aspirin users had been taking the drug for an average of nearly 8 years. Participants were followed for up to 14 years to measure the incidence of cancer in each group. Joining us to discuss the findings, deep tease, is CBS News contributor Dr. David Agus. Doc, what'd they find?
It's pretty cool. I mean, so this is one of many studies. And so the new study here, it's an observational study, showed dramatically lower risk in esophageal cancer, stomach cancer, pancreatic cancer, and colon cancer in the people who took the aspirin, and also slightly lower risk of prostate and leukemia.
Wow. And
so pretty dramatic. You down-modulate inflammation from an aspirin, and wow, cancer incidence goes down.
So should we all be popping aspirin? I mean,
listen,
is it the wonder drug?
Yeah.
2,000 years old. Hippocrates said you take the bark of the willow tree and chew it and pain and fever go away. Yeah. But a 30% across-the-board reduction in the death rate of cancer from 81 milligrams of aspirin a day. So something to talk to your doc about.
Yeah. You're no stranger to the aspirin world. You've written about this in the New York Times. You're an oncologist.
I thought you were going to say I was 2,400 years old or something.
No. You don't look a day over 2,000. But you know, in terms of aspirin and our general sort of American vocabulary around its health benefits, what else are we missing?
So, you know, we had done a study, a cost economic outcome study, showing that by year 2036, if everybody who should take an aspirin does, 900,000 excess people, I love the word excess, other people are alive that would not have been, and we would have saved the economy.
I want to be an excess person.
$690 billion in savings. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is.
That's substantial. All right, up next with more talk of humans one day colonizing other planets, there's new research on the effect of space travel on the human brain. A study published this week in the New England Journal of Medicine examined the brains of more than 30 American astronauts. Researchers conducted MRIs before and after spaceflight to see if the astronauts' brains underwent any structural changes. This is one I really want to hear. What did they find?
So space brain, as we call it. So when you go up into space, obviously gravity goes down.
Yeah.
And when that happens, fluid that normally is going down to the ground goes up. And so what you see is that areas where there was fluid built in the brain, the areas in between sections of the brain, the brain pushes upwards. The eyes push outwards. And there's structural changes in the brain. Eye is right. So these are people that have been on the space station for months at a time. The longer you're there, the more changes you've seen. But we have to study these as we talk about going to Mars and other places. Yeah. Remember, Mars is a 4 to 6 months travel in weightlessness. We have to look at these changes if we're actually going to do something.
Are there benefits to space brain? Asking for a friend.
Alex, I know that look. We just don't know. I mean, we know the changes happen. We don't know if they're forever or if you go back. But the notion that the brain has plasticity and can change depending on your environment, to me, is a fascinating observation.
It seems like we want to work out these changes before we start sending people up.
No question, but think of the implications maybe for stroke recovery and others. If the brain has plasticity and can change in a couple months in space, what's it going to do with disease?
That's really interesting. But because when the way you describe it initially, I'm thinking this cannot be a good thing, right? I mean, I'm thinking you come back with football brain, essentially.
I'm not sure it's the same as a concussion, but you're right. These are changes. We don't know what it means. But certainly what we know is astronauts have changes in their vision because, you know, all of a sudden it's pushing outward those nerves and they're not functioning the same. And when that brain changes, we don't know the implications. So 4 to 6 months travel to Mars. Mars has 1/3 the gravity we do. And so you're going to be living there in this. How do we do that? You know, people in space, they lose 1% of their bone mass a month.
Yikes.
You know, men and women, as they get older, lose 1% a year. So these are dramatic changes that we got to learn in order if we're going to do this.
Staying on terra firma.
All right. Finally, tricking your taste buds. High salt consumption can harm your health. It's one risk factor for cardiovascular disease. But what if you need that flavor in your food?
A new study found spices may be a good substitute. The research was done in China and published in the journal Hypertension. It found that the people who enjoyed spicy foods tended to eat less salt. Furthermore, they also showed more sensitivity to salt, which could contribute to how much they consume. As if I needed another reason to eat spicy food.
Yeah.
pretty wild, right? I mean, we all need to stimulate our taste buds. And so salt does it, but spicy foods can do the same. And certainly it seems to be a lot safer than having lots of salt.
All right. Sign me up with the Tabasco, Dr. David Agus. Thanks for your time, Doc.
Thank you guys. Privilege.